Howdy! My name is Ashley Fox. I'm a senior at Texas A&M University, majoring in kinesiology. More specifically, I am focused on becoming a teacher upon graduation. This presentation is geared for educators and is centered around a unique population of students, the urban learners. This particular segment of students face many challenges outside of the classroom that educators have to deal with on a daily basis. Despite the challenges these urban learners face, I believe it is important for all students, despite their situation, to have the opportunity to be successful. At the conclusion of this presentation, you will have a better understanding of the unique characteristics of urban learners, as well as strategies educators can use to meet the needs of these learners. Thank you and enjoy. After this presentation, you, the learner, will answer the 5 multiple-choice questions located at the end of this presentation on a separate piece of paper with at least 80% accuracy. Before we can dive into the unique characteristics of urban learners, it is essential that we understand what an urban learner is. According to IGI Global, an urban learner is defined as, quote, a student being an active participant in an urban educational and learning environment. The urban learner includes such racial minorities as Native Americans, African Americans, Mexican Americans, Puerto Ricans, and a substantial number of poor whites. Close quote. Now that we have a foundational understanding of what an urban learner is, we will take a closer look at some of the unique characteristics these students have. While not all teachers instructing urban students are confronted with the same challenges, many urban schools and students share unique characteristics and demographics that make them different than suburban and rural schools. Urban schools often operate in densely populated areas that serve a significantly large number of students. Compared to suburban and rural schools, urban schools typically have higher concentrations of poverty, greater racial, ethnic, and linguistic diversity, and more frequent rates of student mobility. The first characteristic we will discuss of urban learners is poverty. Urban learners are faced with high concentrations of poverty, as well as economic and pre-college challenges. When compared to their suburban peers, urban learners are more likely to live in low-income households. Additionally, many urban students have parents or guardians who did not attend higher education. As a result, most urban students lack financial support and family support structures, especially when it comes to post-secondary education. Due to low household incomes, a large majority of urban learners are faced with adult problems at a young age, oftentimes having to work and devote a substantial portion of their time off campus to jobs to help support their household. The second characteristic of urban learners that we will discuss is poor family structure. While the home lives for many urban students vary, family structure is often a toxic environment that lacks support and nurturing. Drug and alcohol abuse, physical abuse, neglect, and young children having to make money or raise other family members are sadly the home situations for many urban learners. Additionally, sometimes parents or older family members are involved in gangs or even in prison. In these types of situations, it is not uncommon for the child's needs to be put aside. This often results in a lack of food, water, clean clothes, and other necessities the children need to survive. As one can imagine, positive role models are often hard to find in such dreadful conditions. This heightens the importance of an educator being a positive role model for urban learners. The third characteristic of urban learners that we will discuss is racial, ethnic, and language diversity. Urban learners are often made up of a large concentration of immigrant populations with high racial, ethnic, and linguistic diversity. Compared to the national average of students, urban learners consist of a greater percentage of first-generation Americans that are foreign-born and often speak a language at home other than English. This, in turn, produces a disconnect between the linguistic and cultural identity with some peers and especially amongst their educators. The fourth and final characteristic of urban learners that we will discuss is frequent student mobility. Student mobility is known as the phenomenon where students change schools for reasons other than grade promotion. Student mobility has been found to strongly relate to race and ethnicity as well as income, therefore often impacting urban youth. Students who change schools frequently tend to have greater academic and behavioral problems. High rates of student mobility also means that you, the educator, will have to constantly determine what level incoming students are at and how you can help if they are behind. To finish off our look at the common characteristics of urban learners, I want to state a quote from Michael Casserly, the Executive Director for the Council of Great City Schools. When addressing these distinct urban demographics with respect to learning by urban students, he said, open quote, "Student poverty, parent education, home resources, English language proficiency, and other factors outside our control work in tandem like a perfect storm to dampen our results in urban education in ways that few others have to contend with." Close quote. While this statement may be true, urban learners spend a majority of their time in school, so it is no secret that teachers hold the power to turn around the statistics of urban learners to create successful, educated members of society. You, as a teacher, have the power to change the educational outcome of your students by using strategies to meet their needs. While these socio-demographics are not the sole challenge of urban educators, they greatly impact how education must be structured. Understanding these specific characteristics of urban learners is essential for teachers working with this population because they pose unique needs educators must consider in order to effectively teach this particular segment of students. With these needs come challenges for urban educators. Every day in the classroom, urban educators need to think about analogies that will work for the entire class, what topics will engage all of the students, how to tailor assignments for English language learners, and more. In order to assist teachers in educating this unique population, the following 5 strategies have been identified as ways to promote learning in the urban setting: creating feelings of hope, genuinely believing in and caring about your students, never giving up on students, having high expectations, and finally, focusing on the specific needs of learners. We will now go into greater detail on each of these 5 strategies that educators can use to meet the needs of urban learners. The first strategy educators must use to meet the needs of urban learners is to create feelings of hope for their students. When an 18-year-old football player was killed in a gang-related shooting, even after attaining a college scholarship, many people in the urban community spoke out about how hopeless their lives were. They expressed that if a star athlete couldn't make it out, how could they expect to? According to Kerwin, quote, "The key to inspiring motivation in youth is to create a hopeful attitude in students." Close quote. This is especially important for urban learners, whose hope may be in short supply with their daily struggles of poverty, language, crime, and more. Urban learners' lack of hope for their futures can be seen in the responses of middle school students from San Jose, California. These students expressed that upon graduation from high school, they thought they would probably end up in prison. This shows a lack of both hope and positive goals for their future. Kerwin goes on to say, quote, "Hope is the foundation upon which motivation is built. Hope is the belief that things can get better." Close quote. When dealing with urban students especially, hope requires the belief that life can improve and that success, particularly in school, can lead to that improved life. It is important to realize that creating a sense of hope ultimately starts with the teachers. The opposite of hope is cynicism, the belief that things are bad and will stay that way. Cynicism in teachers needs to be exterminated in order to have any chance of creating hope for urban learners. The second strategy educators must use to meet the needs of urban learners is to genuinely believe in and care about their students. Urban learners often have had teachers in the past say that they believe in them, while they don't really mean it. Therefore, students are frequently aware when a teacher isn't telling them the truth. As a teacher to urban learners especially, you need to genuinely express that you believe in your students, but only if you really mean it. If you aren't telling the truth, the student will most likely be able to tell, and it will not be effective. Truly believing in students won't always be easy, but you need to continue to believe in them, even when it gets hard. Your persistence will particularly stand out to students and help them realize that you really do have faith in them. As Kerwin says, quote, "Believing in students communicates a belief that they can succeed in school, and more importantly, in life." Close quote. Additionally, urban learners often build figurative walls to protect themselves from their dangerous and devastating home environment and the people around them. Therefore, it may be difficult for educators to break down parts of these walls to lessen the interference they have with academic and social learning. In order to do this, a teacher must be patient and connect with students in ways that the learner feels like the educator genuinely cares about them. A few ways teachers can show they care is by listening to students, not judging students, doing nice things for students without being asked, and spending time with students. It is important to be aware that it may take time for students to let their guard down, but you must keep trying. The third strategy educators must use to meet the needs of urban learners is to never give up on their students. Since many urban learners do not receive support in their homes, they are used to adults giving up on them. Because of this, many urban learners find a sense of comfort in adults not trying and instead giving up. In fact, oftentimes, when a teacher refuses to give up on an urban learner, the student will try tactics to push the teacher away. In these situations, it is important for the educator to clearly communicate with the student that he or she will not give up on the child, no matter what. Keep in mind, though, that if the teacher communicates this, he or she needs to be willing to make a commitment to not give up. Urban learners have often had many adults betray them in their lifetime. They do not need the teacher to be another one. The fourth strategy educators must use to meet the needs of urban learners is to have high expectations for their students. Educators cannot assume that students will achieve at a high level if they have not already established high expectations. Teachers need to have both high academic and high behavioral expectations for their students. Educators should create instructional programs that provide ample opportunities and give students the tools to reach the high expectation levels set for them. Cartledge and Lowe highlight the importance of setting high expectations when they said, quote, "To maximize pupil learning outcomes, classroom instruction is driven by the goal, i.e., high expectations, rather than dictated by traditional classroom activities." Close quote. In order to attain high standards, academic interventions by educators need to be effective and produce high academic engagement. This requires teachers to use well-researched and validated teaching practices. Raising expectations to emphasize active student responses and progress monitoring through interventions have positive impact on both academic and social behaviors. Once again, it is important to make sure classroom instruction aligns with the teacher's expected outcomes so that students receive ample practice time with targeted skills. Additionally, educators need to maintain close supervision and monitoring of student performance to see if expectations are indeed being met. The fifth and final strategy educators must use to meet the needs of urban learners is to focus on the specific needs of their students. It is important that curriculum and instructional programs reflect the needs of the urban learner population. If a technique for teaching students, or even one particular student, is not working, then educators need to be willing to make changes in the instruction to enhance student learning. If something isn't working, it doesn't make sense to keep using it. Educators need to be able to adjust teaching as needed. Additionally, it is essential that instructional decisions in urban schools evolve from data based on urban students. Curriculum for urban learners produces the greatest increase in student learning if it is created from practices shown to be effective with the same type of students, urban learners. Plus, student performance should be continuously evaluated to collect new data on the effectiveness of the techniques chosen in order to guide instructional decisions. Cartledge and Lowe state, quote, "It is imperative that urban educators learn to recognize, value, and implement evidence-based instructional practices." Close quote. Urban student strengths need to be affirmed and nurtured. All children have talents, special interests, and areas they are good in. Due to their often diminished home environments, many urban learners do not have the ability to enrich their strengths at home or in their communities. Therefore, it is essential that schools make an effort to seek out their abilities and nurture them. Cartledge and Lowe emphasize that, quote, "Teachers need to capitalize on students' strengths and interests as means of affirming and motivating them to remain engaged in school." Close quote. For example, as discussed at the beginning of this presentation, a large majority of urban learners have to work and devote a substantial portion of their time to off-campus jobs in order to support their households. While this often results in students who do not have a lot of time for homework, Their sense of responsibility for their family has the potential to be very motivational if educational activities can be centered around practical skills and career connections. This is a prime example of what focusing on the individual needs of the learners looks like. It is important to understand what each student values in order to create meaningful and impactful learning experience for them. The following video clip shows an example of an educator for urban learners. As you watch the video, take note of the strategies we just discussed that the teacher uses to meet the needs of her learners.
Listen to me, all of you. Don't use me as another excuse for why you can't make it. You made it to your junior year. Think about how you did that. Everyone in this room has a chance to graduate. For some, you'll be the first in your family, the first with a choice to go to college. Some may move faster than others, but you'll each have the chance. And you did that, not me. Now, I have one final project in mind. Ms. G. Yeah?
Ms. G wanted us to put our diaries together in a book, just like Anne Frank. She got this businessman, John too, to donate 35 computers so we could work. She told us we had something to say to people. We weren't just kids in a class anymore. We were writers with our own voices, our own stories, and even if nobody else read it, the book would be something to leave behind that said we were here. This is what happened. We mattered, even if it was just to each other. And we won't forget. Miss G didn't promise it would get published or anything, but we could get it out there ourselves. She asked us to come up with a title, something to call ourselves.
In this video clip, Miss G models many of the teaching strategies we have discussed. For starters, she instills hope in the students by telling them not to use her as another excuse of why they can't make it, and by reminding the students that they are the reason they have made it this far in their education. She also instills high expectations in her students by telling them that each of them has a chance to graduate and go to college. Miss G demonstrates an understanding of the various needs of her learners by saying that some of the students will move faster than others, but they can each make it. You can also tell that Miss G has made it known to her students that she genuinely believes in and cares about them when a student says, quote, "Miss G told us we had something to say to people. We weren't just kids in a class anymore. We were writers with our own voices, our own stories. We mattered." Close quote. Finally, Miss G never gave up on her students. She worked hard to relate to her students, get computers donated, and find a project that the students could connect with. Now we will complete a short 5-question assessment to see how well you have understood the material presented. Pause the video now and grab a blank piece of paper and a writing utensil if you need to. Resume the video once you are ready to proceed with the assessment. Question 1. Which of the following is not a common characteristic of urban learners? A. Poverty. B. Supportive families. C. Frequent student mobility. D. Racial, ethnic, and linguistic diversity. Or E. All the above are common characteristics of urban learners. You may pause this video now if needed while you select an answer. Resume the video once you are ready to move on to the next question. The correct answer is B. Supportive families. Question 2. According to Kerwin, what is the key to inspiring motivation in urban youth? A. Implementing projects that are community-based. B. Giving up on students. C. Planning fun yet educational field trips. D. Creating feelings of hope for the students. Or E. both answer choices A and C. You may pause this video now if needed while you select an answer. Resume the video once you're ready to move on to the next question. The correct answer is D, creating feelings of hope for the students. Question 3. Having high expectations for students involves teachers A. Setting both academic and behavioral expectations. B. Using academic interventions that produce high academic engagement. C. Aligning instruction with expectations. Or D. All of the above. You may pause the video now if needed while you select an answer. Resume the video once you are ready to move on to the next question. The correct answer is D. All of the above. Question 4. If an urban learner uses tactics to try to push the teacher away, the teacher should A. Call the student's parents and tell them to support their child since the teacher is being unsuccessful. B. Make 3 more attempts to support the student, then leave them alone if they continue to push away. C. Clearly communicate with the student that the teacher will not give up on him or her no matter what. Or D. Immediately admit defeat and not bother the student anymore. You may pause the video now if needed while you select an answer. Resume the video once you are ready to move on to the next question. The correct answer is C. Clearly communicate with the student that the teacher will not give up on him or her no matter what. Question 5. Which of the following is a way that a teacher can show students that he or she genuinely cares about them? A. Listen to students. B. Not judge students. C. Do nice things for students only when asked. D. All of the above. Or E. Both answer choices A and B. You may pause this video now if needed while you select an answer. Resume the video once you are done with this question. The correct answer is E. Both answer choices A and B. That concludes our assessment. Thank you for participating. As this presentation comes to an end, I want to leave you with this thought from Kerwin. Quote, even if you only have a little bit of time a day with a student, it is better than nothing. Every good minute with an urban learner is one less bad one. Maybe your time with a student is the only time that child can feel appreciated, successful, cared for, or that someone believes in him or her. Many urban learners need better lives. Teachers have the power to be that light in the darkness and change the students' lives for the better. Close quote. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Now go out and make a difference.
I want my life to make a difference. I want my life to make a change. I want my life to do some good here. I want my life to make a change.